All right, so now this part of the video, we are going to be going through the machine settings. I'm going to teach you how to clean the machine. We'll do a little bit of troubleshooting also. But to start, I want to talk about a little button on the screen that we haven't talked about yet, which is our help button. This is a wonderful feature that should be on every sewing machine ever made because it's so great. This little question mark button will help answer questions about anything we see on the screen. So how we use this is we touch the question mark and then we touch the icon we want more information about. Then we get a pop-up. It tells us what that's for. And then if we want to know more, we can click this link that is going to take us into our user's guide, and it's going to give us more information about that feature. All right, so we can get out of there and back. So if we wanted information about, say, sewing stitches, we don't know what certain stitches are used for. We can touch our help button. We can touch the stitch. It's going to tell us what that stitch is for. So it's going to answer questions about anything that we see on the screen. And then again, if there's more information, it'll link you straight to your instruction book. So that help button is a fantastic resource. Please use it. It is a great feature. All right, let's go now into our tools. This is our tools icon at the lower left. So we're going to touch this button, and this opens up our machine settings. So we have different categories at the top. So we're just going to go through each one, but I'm going to read these off here. So we got machine settings, or we got sewing settings, machine settings, Wi-Fi settings, My Sewnet settings. Again, that is, you can go online and make a My Sewnet account, which is free, and you can download the My Sewnet app. You have machine information here. So let's go through these. So we're going to start in the sewing settings. So in the sewing settings, we have the default settings and we have the temporary settings. Default means if I start clicking these off, these settings are going to stay off permanently until I go and turn them back on. So we're going to leave these settings on because we want them on. This side, temporary, means we are just going to turn them off for while we're sewing. And as soon as the machine restarts, it's going to go back to normal. So this is a little safer for you if you feel like you want to play around with a few settings and you're not exactly sure what the settings are going to do. Do that in temporary. Don't do it in default until you absolutely know what the settings are. But let's talk about these settings. Active stitch technology is the first one. That is such a nice feature built into the machine. I'm not going to talk about all the technical end of it, but it is a piece of technology that works with the thread that makes sure that your stitches are perfect all the time, especially when you're doing decorative stitches. Your stitches are going to be perfectly balanced on both sides, which typically sewing machines don't do. So your stitch quality has now just really elevated itself having this extra piece of technology. Also, too, it allows you to work with very difficult threads like metallic threads and monofilaments much easier because they're not straining the thread through tension plates. So it's a really great piece of technology. But if you want to turn it off to see what the machine is going to function like when it's using good old-fashioned tensions, then you can turn it off. Automatic presser foot lift. That is when the presser foot raises automatically. That happens when we use our cutter button. It happens when we do needle down, the foot pivots up. So all those times that the foot automatically pivots, if we turn this off, it will not do that any longer. The foot will only raise by the use of the button. All right, so that's the automatic presser foot lift. Automatic thread cutter. There's no need to turn this off. But there is a few times that the machine can automatically cut for us. And if we don't want it to, we can turn it off. Like when it finishes a buttonhole, a lot of times it'll automatically cut. So things like that, but you don't need to turn it off. Just leave it on. It's a great feature. Our free motion options is another way to select free motion and do some of the little adjustments for the different feet. Stitch with limiting. So stitch limiting options. We have stitch with safety here. You honestly don't ever need to check this with this machine because this machine automatically sets itself when you change the stitch plate to stitch with safety. So your machine, this particular machine, if you don't own it yet, comes with 2 stitch plates. Comes with your standard plate to do all your regular sewing, zigzags, all that stuff. Then it comes with a single hole stitch plate. When you attach that single hole stitch plate to the machine knows it's attached and has made it so that you cannot zigzag the needle and accidentally break the needle. So it's a very smart machine. So you can go here though and click stitch with safety. If I click this now, even though I have the regular plate on, my needle cannot zigzag any longer. So you may use this if you were attaching, say, a straight stitch only foot and you're afraid you might forget and zigzag on top of that foot and break your needle, then sure, come here to do that. But I would tell you, it takes 2 seconds to change your stitch plate. So if you're putting on a straight stitch foot, why not put on your straight stitch plate? They're going to perform the best together. Do that, and now the machine is going to have that safety feature automatically turned on. So that's my little speech about stitch with safety. So we're going to uncheck that. All right, twin needle. Twin needle is important. If you do work with a twin needle, yes, turn this system on. It's very, very, very important, especially on the machines that have the active stitch technology. We definitely want to use this if you're working with a twin needle. If you haven't worked with a twin needle before, it might be something that you want to explore because it's a lot of fun. So when you buy a twin needle, they come in different widths. So it's the spacing of the two needles side to side. So we got narrow and then you got wider spacing depending on the twin needle you bought. So when we select, let's pretend we are working with a 3mm twin. So we're going to select 3mm. I'm going to hit close and you're going to see what's going to happen. Now I have 2 rows of stitches side by side on the screen. So it's going to show us what's happening here when we select different stitches. Let's say we want to zigzag with our twin needle. Now we have 2 rows of zigzags side by side. Or we want to play around with some of our other stitches. Well, there is a lot of fun stuff you can do now, and it's safe because you've told the machine how wide your twin needle is. In the past, we would never attempt to do this because we would probably end up breaking our twin needle because it's really hard to gauge how wide you can go to zigzag. So now you have all this freedom to get really creative with twin needles by telling the machine what twin needle you're working with. So make sure that you are doing that if you're going to work with a twin needle. So let's get back here and we're going to turn the twin needle back off. So now the twin needle is off. Needle stop position. The default on the machine is to stop with the needle up when you take your foot off the foot control. If you prefer it always to stop with the needle down, your machine lets you do that. It's your machine. You can customize it. That would be how you would do it, would be right there. You have presser foot pressure. You can adjust this if you want to. It is going to be a temporary adjustment. I believe it doesn't permanently remember this adjustment forever. So you can play around a little bit. But I'll tell you, the machine presets its foot pressure depending on what you're sewing on. So there's not a lot of times that you need to do this. But let's say you're working on something really awful, just really terrible fabric that's put together really bad and it has all these really bulky seams in it. So it's like your foot has to climb these hills and go into valleys constantly. So your foot's kind of going up and down, up and down, up and down when you're sewing. You could decide, okay, I'm gonna loosen my foot pressure. That's gonna take the force off my foot. It's not gonna push as hard against my fabric, and it may have an easier time kind of gliding over those seams. So you can play around with that if you want to. Again, it's your machine, so you can play around with these settings. Options for feed dogs. Really no reason to turn this off, but if the auto means that when you select free motion, it automatically puts the presser foot down for you because you're doing free motion, right? Also, when you hit the up button on the presser foot to the highest position, it automatically lowers the feed teeth. Again, if you don't want this to happen, then we can take it off of auto. You can also come here and say, option for feed teeth, I want them to stay up when I'm free motion quilting, which isn't typical, but there's all different specialty techniques out there, and you never know what someone's going to come up with, so that gives you the options to override some of the automatic features there. Tie off features are the next one. So on the machines, you can have the machine always tie off the beginning, tie off the end, and thread cut always, just by default. So if you do a lot of garment construction and you want to just always have that process sped up by skipping having to do all those extra steps, you can have the machine set that way to do it by default, so that you don't have to go in and select the button each time. So that is there. All right, so that is the sewing settings. Let's go over to the machine settings. Machine settings, this is where our language setting is. So if you speak a different language, go ahead and click that and change it. This is where the volume of the machine is. So the machine makes little noises from time to time, plays music, whatever. You can adjust the volume there. If you want to turn on the alarm setting to repeat itself. So for instance, if you're sewing and your thread breaks, the machine makes a noise and alerts you that your thread broke. Well, if you are hard of hearing or you're working in your room and you want that to repeat over and over and over again until you clear the message, click that. You can also name your machine. This is your machine, so you can put your name on it. You can touch this link and you can call the machine whatever you want. So that's how you name your machine. Lock screen means that if you want to lock out this screen so that people are touching it, you can lock it and then you can unlock it when you want to use it again. Units, so it's good if you have little kids and stuff running around. Millimeters and inches. Let me just talk about this for a minute. People think it's a good idea to switch their machine to inches because maybe you're here in the United States. I'm from California, so we're used to inches here. So you think, okay, I want to switch this to inches. But it doesn't always jive right on a sewing machine. We can switch it, and I'll show you what I mean. I recommend keeping it in millimeters. Millimeters makes more sense for sewing machines. So let's switch this to inches, and let's go look at a few stitches and some of our stitch settings. All right. See these numbers down here? They don't make a lot of sense to us unless we are really great with math and we can do all these quick equations in our head. But when we look at our stitch width now for this stitch, it is now 0.236. Our stitch length is now 0.236. So these numbers aren't numbers we're used to seeing. They are fractions of inches because inches just don't work as well as units of measure for our sewing machine settings. So just know that if you change that setting, all your numbers are going to maybe look a little funny. So let's go back to machine settings, and I'm going to definitely put that back on millimeters, because when it's on millimeters and we go back and we look at our stitch, these are normal numbers we're used to seeing. You know, how long our pattern is, how long our stitch length is, and it's in millimeters, so easy numbers to understand. All right, let's go back here, machine settings. Okay, so millimeters, inches, LED work light brightness. So throughout filming this, I have been turning the brightness down over here so that I can highlight the display better. Typically, your machine's going to have its lighting turned all the way up. This machine has incredible lighting. I think this is probably the best lighting in the entire sewing industry. I almost guarantee it is. Let me change the camera view. It has all of this. I mean, this is a giant bank of lighting, and it's a bank, so it's not just individual little guys. This nice bank does not cast any shadows. You have banks here, you have banks here, so you have very consistent lighting throughout the machine, but it is extremely bright. So when you're sewing in a dark room, because right now I'm in a fairly dark room, we might turn the lighting down at night because it's probably going to be a little bit too bright in a really dark room if you're sewing. So this over here is how we would adjust the lighting up or down for the machine. There, so I'm turning it back down. All right, background. So you can see we have background colors for the machine. If you are a person who likes different color schemes on the machine and don't want to have the default color, which is this one, that is where you can go and play around with all of your different color settings for the machine. So you can decide if you're a person who loves purple, great. Choose purple. Your machine is now purple. All right. I'm going to pause this since we have a phone ringing. All right, sorry about the phone interruptions. I actually film these videos not at my business because my business is very busy and there would be constant interruptions. And so I actually film these at my house. This is actually my art table because I do art. So this is a perfect spot for shooting these videos for me. So sorry about the phone interruptions. All right, so machine settings here. That's all of the machine settings. If we click over to Wi-Fi, this is the Wi-Fis that are popping up around us. So if we need to select a different Wi-Fi, we can do that there. MySonet. So if you do go on to mysonet.com and you set up a MySonet username and password, then I recommend coming here and putting the username and password into the machine. That way everything talks to each other. And if you're on the MySonet and there is a project that has free sewing stitches and you want to save those sewing stitches to the cloud through your computer on MySonet, they will be automatically on your sewing machine because everything talks to each other through those settings. All right, so that is there. And now we have the last one, which is the machine's information. So this is simple stuff. Machine serial number. It is also on a sticker that's on the underside of the machine, but then we don't have to flip the machine over to see it. We can just go into machine information, and there is our serial number if we needed it for any kind of warranty stuff. Machines, MAC address, you don't have to worry about that. Firmware, the current firmware release is firmware 56. When they come out with new versions, of course, this machine is on your home Wi-Fi, so it'll automatically update anytime a new version is released, and then the version number will change here. Clear user accounts and files. If this machine is no longer going to be your sewing machine and this is going to go to somebody else, then you want to come here and you want to clear all. That takes out all of your information. It takes out your Wi-Fi. It takes out your MySonet settings. It puts the machine all the way back to factory default, how it was when it came out of the box. So that is all of our settings in our settings menu. So now to wrap this video up, we're going to come over and we're going to talk about how we do our maintenance to the machine. All right, so this is one of the easiest machines to maintenance. They make it very, very simple on the machine. These machines require no lubrication from you at home. Never squirt oil into your sewing machine. Under no circumstances. Do you still have to take your machine in to have it serviced by your local dealer, by the professionals? Yes, you do. You should do that with all sewing machines. But you have a little bit of cleaning to do on your own. So between your projects, you are going to get the lint out of the machine and the dust out of the machine. This is important because lint in any sewing machine is the worst thing that can be inside of a machine, because what does it do? It steals away all the lubricants from the machine. So any oil that's in the machine, any grease that's in the machine, it acts like a cotton ball and it starts taking those things away. Lint also likes to pack itself in between different moving parts. And so if there's a grease on a gear in the machine and you get a lot of lint in there, well, the lint's going to start touching and sticking to the grease, which is going to start wedging itself between the gears. So we want to limit the amount of lint that's in our machines at any given time. So the way that we do this is we are going to very easily pop off our stitch plate. To do that, we're going to take off our presser foot. To take off the presser foot, you just push down on the front of the foot like this, and the foot pops off. You're going to take off your little window that you use to change your bobbins. And then right in this corner, you just give a little twist. Just boop. I can use my fingers to do it also like this, but I work on machines, so I'm used to doing stuff like that, but I wouldn't recommend you doing that. Just give a little twist in that corner and the plate pops up. So then we take off our plate, and this is also how we change to our straight stitch plate. So we have another plate that is our straight stitch plate. If we're going to change, we would just very quickly attach the plate like this, push down, and now we have our straight stitch plate on. So very fast and easy. So now this piece lifts out, and then our bobbin case just lifts straight out of the machine. Now that our bobbin case is out of the machine, this is going to expose all the metal components down here. This is where the lint is going to start to build up. So then we start to get our little brush and we brush, and we clean out the lint. What we don't do is we do not use canned air to blow the lint further into our sewing machine. In the sewing machine world, that is a big no-no. So no, because we want to remove the lint, not blow it around inside the machine. Also, you'll notice when you take this apart, there is these little brushes right here, and right here, and right here. There's even one right here on the bobbin casing, a little brush. Those brushes belong there, and as you're sewing, lint is going to get stuck to those little brushes. those little brushes are not lint, so don't remove those brushes. Don't start taking tools and start prying the brush out because you think it's a big piece of lint. It is not. Brush those brushes with your brush. Take the lint off it, sure, but don't remove those from the machine. All right, so now we get to put our pieces back together. So we just dust, clean between your feed teeth. So make sure you can see those by popping off your stitch plate or your presser foot. All right, bobbin case goes back on. Let's look at this bobbin case real quick. We have this opening of our bobbin case here. That is where our needle goes. This is where our needle zigzags. This also is about the same shape as our feed teeth that are right here. That means that is going to point straight at our needle, so right at our 12 o'clock position. So we're just going to take our bobbin case. I like to hold it like this, and then I just drop it in, and I'm just going to wiggle a little bit until I know it's sitting flat. And it does wiggle a little bit when it's in there. If you are not 100% confident that you have it sitting flat, then take your hand wheel, turn the machine, see how it rotates and it doesn't jump out of the machine. It's on there, it's flat, it's good. So it just sits right on there and it wiggles a little bit. All right, so now we take this piece. This piece goes on top of this piece, so it stands up and then it just flops down on top. So again, just stands up right here and you just lay it over. Done. That is done. Now we can reattach our stitch plate. Our stitch plate, these little tabs, go into these tabs back here first. When you do put the stitch plate on, the only thing I'm going to emphasize to you is to make sure you have pushed it all the way back. This line should be straight with the back of the machine opening here. So if you have a big gap, don't try to push the plate down and snap it in. You got to push it all the way back here. Then you can push down on the front and it attaches back onto the machine. And we are done. We can put our bobbin back in. We can put our presser foot on. So I'm going to do that now. All right, we'll take our presser foot. The presser foot, you can just lift right up and it snaps on. And then we have our walking foot back here, which is our IDT. Down is on, off is off. Or up is off, sorry. Off is off, but up is off. So down is on, and that's it. We are done. Talk a little bit about troubleshooting. I know we talked a little bit about this earlier, but if I ever sew on, and this is true on all sewing machines, if I start sewing on a sewing machine and I hear crunch, 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 and everything gets caught down in our bobbin area and nothing sews, that means our top thread, our upper thread is not in the machine correctly. Take the top thread out and redo it. It is not a bobbin problem. I can't say that enough. It is not a bobbin problem. I don't care if you just took your bobbin case out and put it back in, and now you feel like that must be the reason why. It is not. It is the top thread causing it. Take the top thread out and put it back in first. That is number one. So anytime the machine does anything wrong on any sewing machine, tangles up the thread underneath the fabric, all the thread gets caught around the bobbin area, top thread is causing it. Most likely you're not in the take-up lever. If we do not click the bobbin in correctly, the stitching we see on the top side of the fabric will look loose. The stitching will be bad on the top, so they're exactly opposite of each other. So that is really my only troubleshooting. These machines are so great that we really don't have any issue with these. They're the most powerful machine in the industry. The one thing that I do see speaks to the power of the machine. This machine's motor is really strong, but also they do something really cool. If the machine's needle senses something incredibly hard to go through, really, really dense, what happens is the machine turns the needle into a jackhammer. So, because these are home sewing machine needles, they're not industrial needles. So if you're trying to push it through something that it won't go through, most likely the needle will end up bending. And when the needle ends up bending, it hits the plate and it breaks. So what the machine is smart enough to do is if it's sensing something that is extreme to try to go through, the needle turns into a jackhammer and goes ching, 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 and jackhammers itself through it. That is great because you can get through really thick things now that you could never do before without breaking your needle. But on the other side of that, this is also extremely powerful. I have seen people put their needles through rulers. I have seen them put the needle through the bobbin casing because they are pulling and jerking that needle around and the machine's turning it into a jackhammer. So just keep that in the back of your mind, how powerful this needle is, that it will push itself through the bone in your finger probably. So a very, very powerful machine. So just use a little bit of caution there, but that is it for the troubleshooting, and that is pretty much at the end of our video. I'm going to change the camera view a little bit. This is again just my absolute favorite machine. I can't tell you how much I enjoy sewing on this machine and I enjoy working on this machine. And I don't just say that loosely because I sell just about every brand out there in my store. And I would put this machine up against anything in the industry, and this machine is going to outperform it. I have no doubt in my mind. And not just that, this machine also has a lot of longevity built into it. The quality to which these parts are built into the machine just tells me that this machine is going to be sewing in 30 years. I don't know who's going to be sewing on it, but someone will be sewing on this machine in 30 years from now. And most products built today, they can't say that. Just a wonderful machine, and it's got all of the right amount of features. The interface here is really nice and easy to navigate. The size of the machine is perfect. We have 12 inches from here to here. We have so much extra height here that you might as well have added 4 more inches to the machine's length just by having this extra height. So you can get some really serious rolls of fabric in there. I also appreciate, this is a minor thing, I think, but I love the height here. I can almost put my full hand width in there. It is so tall here. That is so much easier to get your hands in there if you're changing your needle or if you're putting on attachments. You've got so much working room here. Most other sewing machines I'm working with come so much lower, where you get such a small amount of distance here. So just an all around great sewing machine. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this class. I hope you've learned a lot and gotten a lot of good information. If you own this machine, great. Sew along with these videos. As you're sewing along with the video, it's really going to help cement the information in your head. If you don't own this machine and it's on your wish list, talk to your local dealer, talk to us, talk to whoever. It is definitely a machine that is a joy to own. So, all right. Thank you so much.